Lamentation, elation, fear, anger, greed, confusion, and hankering, as well as birth and death, are all experiences of the false ego and not of the pure soul. Now here's another definition. False ego is the pure soul's illusory identification with the subtle material mind and the gross material body. As a result of this illusory identification, the conditioned soul feels lamentation for things he lost, jubilation over things he's gained, and fear over things inauspicious, anger at the frustration of his desires, and greed for sense gratification. And so, bewildered by such false attractions and aversions, the conditioned soul must accept further material bodies, which means he must undergo repeated births and deaths. Samsara chakra. One who is self-realized knows that all such mundane emotions have nothing to do with the pure spirit soul, whose natural propensity is to engage in a loving service of the Lord. These are some good ones. This is chapter 28, verses 15 through 16. The living entity who falsely identifies with his body, senses, life, air, and mind, and who dwells within these coverings, assumes the form of his own materially conditioned qualities and work. He is designated variously in relation to the total material energy. So it's a false ego which causes the living entity to suffer material existence. It's described in detail. So it's a problem. False ego. So now it says here, we can revive our eternal liberated personality free from the contamination of false ego by dedicating ourselves to the loving service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. When the pure spirit soul accepts the false ego, he must undergo material suffering. One automatically conquers false ego by accepting oneself to be the eternal servant of God. Although false ego has no factual basis, it is perceived in many forms, such as the functions of the mind, speech, life, air, and bodily faculties. But with the sword of transcendental knowledge sharpened by worship of the Guru, a sober sage will cut off his false identification and live in this world free from all material attachments. Real spiritual knowledge is based on the discrimination of spirit from matter and is cultivated by scriptural evidence, austerity, direct perception, hearing the Puranic historical narrations, and by logical inference. The absolute truth which alone was present before the creation of the universe, and which alone will remain after its destruction, is also the time factor and the ultimate cause. The absolute truth alone is the actual reality. Whatever apparent duality is perceived in the self is simply the confusion of the mind. Indeed, such supposed duality has no basis to rest upon, apart from one's own soul. The eternal self is neither assumed nor lost, since every living entity is an eternal reality. The living entity is pure spirit without any tinge of matter. Consequently, the false ego, which is generated by falsely identifying with matter, is a mistaken identity imposed upon the pure spirit soul. The sense of ego, or I am, the sense of one's individual identity, comes from the spirit soul, because there is no other possible basis for such self-awareness. I have to think about it. What is the origin? The feeling that I am, therefore I exist, or something. What is the basis of this thinking, of this idea? Is the body produce this idea? This comes from the soul, the Atma. The sense of I am comes from the soul. There is no other possible basis for such self-awareness. By studying one's false sense of ego, one can analytically understand that there is such a thing as pure ego, which is expressed by the words, the Vedic aphorism or Vedanta Sutra, Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. I am pure spirit soul. One can easily understand in a similar way that there is a supreme spirit soul, the personality of Godhead, who is the omniscient controller of everything. Such understanding in Krishna consciousness constitutes perfect knowledge as described by Lord Krishna here to Uddhav in the Uddhav Gita. So this is something about the false ego, the tattva, and we can read. Now we want to now that's the problem. Now we want to find a solution, an easy solution. We don't want to work too hard on this. Solve this. So there's overcoming the false ego. This is our next the solution. We established a problem that some people may accept as a problem, some of you. And now we have to see if there's some solution. As soon as we realize that we are not the controller, the proprietor and enjoyer of this material world or this material body, and when we admit that we are merely insignificant, eternal servants of Krishna or God, then our true ego or real eternal identity will manifest. And our ego will give us such an ego, pure ego, will give us great pleasure. So this is, it sounds easy, it's just a snap of a finger. Just realize our insignificance. Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan. We're anu, we're an atomic particle of consciousness. If you want to stagger the mind for a moment, just think. We are jivas, jivatmas, living beings, living souls, and we're inside this body. So there's maybe 12, 15 people here. But actually, how many jivas are in this one room? As we are jivatma, and we are a living conscious entity, in this room right now, there are probably 20 billion jivas. Microbes and ants and who knows, all kinds of bugs and
inside our body.
And inside our body, so many worms and other living entities. Every man is a universe to himself. The macrocosm within the microcosm, they say. So above, so below. The body itself is the universe, and the heart is the sun planet. And so many stars and other minor stars are circulating around the sun. So the sun is driving on this universe, and the heart is driving on the universe of the body. There's millions and millions of souls inside our own body. It's inconceivable. But yet we think, but I'm a big guy. You know? I'm a really big person. I'm a very big person. So this is to realize that we're insignificant. That I'm simply one insignificant servant of the Lord. This is, if we can realize this, then we're home free. We're actually in the comfort zone. We're self-realized, let's say, at that point.